Hello to all of my wonderful, amazing, gorgeous, beautiful Valkyries and Valko supporters out there. I hope that you are all doing well and that you're all taking care of yourselves. While so many great and amazing and wonderful things have come of this whole Bring Valko movement, I'm not gonna lie, it has been a really long journey. It has felt like a roller coaster ride of emotions, and yeah, things were really getting to me. Earlier this week, I had to take a mental health day off of work and stuff like that just to take care of myself, to recuperate. I think that I had greatly underestimated just how much things were getting to me. But yeah, I was so stressed out to the point that I even ended up getting my period early. So I guess I joined that group of Alco supporters who ended up being so stressed that we got our periods early. I have been doing a lot better now, so you don't have to worry too much about me. I just wanted to take some time to make this video to discuss some concerns that I have with things that have been going on in our community. And by that, I mean the ongoing online discourse talking about minors that are playing the game. And the reason why I just wanted to talk about this was because it's something that involves minors. And I believe that whenever people are talking about minors, there is a responsibility to do it in a way that is responsible, respectful, rational, logical, and caring. And while I most definitely have seen a lot of people in this community discuss this topic with that kind of mentality, there's definitely adults that I have seen too who just seem to be using a lot of harsh reckless language. They've just been perpetuating false narratives that I believe are unhelpful and harmful, quite frankly, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, usually I'm not the kind of person to address every small thing that happens in the community. I just don't feel the need to do that. I just would rather focus on the things that are factual, the things that matter the most in terms of this whole movement. I prefer to keep in mind what the actual priorities are. And that is bringing back Valko. It's the Bring Back Valko movement. So I've always just felt like not every single little thing is a thing that needs to be addressed by me. But yeah, like I said, this one seems to be really important because it involves minors and yeah. Okay, so first and foremost, I feel like the most important thing that we all need to be doing is separating facts from opinions and just overall community reactions. I feel like one of the biggest ongoing narratives that has been spread throughout this whole discussion of minors playing the game has been, oh, it was all because of minors that the game got canceled, or the majority of Valko haters in China were all minors, and because of them the game got ruined, Valko got removed and stuff like that. And maybe to other people this might seem to be a not so harmful narrative that people are taking. Maybe some people have an understanding that sure, it wasn't all minors who ruined the game, and they're just hyperbolizing because they're in an emotional moment and stuff like that. But personally, I feel like this statement isn't as harmless as maybe someone might think. I feel like this statement has the potential to cause harm to minors and stuff like that. And not only that, it's just a really oversimplified narrative. There's just always harm in overgeneralizing, and it really went to make that, oh, it was all because of minors that the game got canceled. So I think it's important to focus on what is true, and the truth is that yes, there were minors in China and around the world who were playing the game. But I do think that for the very first point that I want to make, I am going to focus on the minors who were in China. Reason being, in China, the age restrictions to play the game Love and Deep Space is 18. I believe it's an 18 plus game in China. So anyone who was playing the game and they were younger than 18, they were playing the game against age restrictions. I did hear that people were talking about how these minors were using stolen IDs from their parents or guardians or just other adults around them in order to bypass age restrictions and to be able to access the game. I have heard how they were buying accounts that were opened by adults, stealing their parents' credit cards and debit cards in order to make in game purchases. They were just doing overall these things, some of which were illegal, like stealing, but other things were not necessarily illegal, but they were still disrespectful or just wrong and incorrect behavior for them to be engaging in. And I do believe that there's also news stories where they discuss these things, legitimate news stories where they talk about these things in order to back up what people are saying online. So not all of it is false, not all of it is completely unfounded. I do want to make that clear. But I also do want to point out that as of yet, there is no factual statistic that we have that says that a majority of Valgo haters in China were minors, and that it was because of all of these minors that got Valgo cancelled that the game is ruined. We don't have any statistic to support that. While we can say that yes, there were minors who were playing the game and who were doing so wrongfully because of age restriction laws in China, but it's, yeah, you understand what I'm saying, that we don't have any statistics to back up that it was mostly minors who were doing these things. And as a matter of fact, I am more inclined to believe that the people who caused the most harm in this community, the people who caused the most damage in doing things like sending cow dung, showing up with a knife at Infold, leading all of these group discussions in online spaces where they were twisting in-game content and combining it with national historical trauma in order to benefit themselves. I do believe that a large majority of the people who were doing these things were adults. I just feel like, well, yes, minors are very impressionable, and there were certainly some minors who were involved in this hate train. It is a bit much to say that they were the ones who were leading this whole campaign against Valco. They were the ones who were the vast majority in doing all of these things that got Valco cancelled. I don't think that we can reasonably make that statement, and I think that it is a reckless and harmful statement to make because it is simply just, it's not truthful. Now, I do want to go back to what I was talking about before, about how not all the minors who were playing this game were in China. There were many minors who were playing this game who were in all places around the world. And the reason why I'm making this point is because, well, yes, in China, the age restriction laws are 18 plus. In other places, this isn't the case. There are places around the world where it's 13 plus. Like, for example, where I am right now, I do believe in the App Store, it is rated 18 plus. So yeah, to say that all the minors who were playing this game, they were all accessing it wrongfully also isn't true. I do want to make it clear that it's okay to be of the opinion that anyone below the age of 16 shouldn't be playing the game. I also personally believe that. I do believe that younger teenagers and preteens, so 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I do think that this game is a bit much for them and they shouldn't be playing this game. I feel like the age rating should be moved up from 13 to 16 plus, right? But the truth of the matter is the age rating was 13. So it's like if there was a minor who was in a country where the age or an area where the age rating was 13 plus and they were playing that game and they were 13, 14, 15 and they're playing Love in Deep Space, they weren't necessarily doing so wrongfully. They weren't going against the age restriction laws of whatever area or country they were in. Also, I believe that it is necessary to include that not all minors who were playing this game were disrespectful or engaging in delinquent or illegal behaviors. Because the way that some adults are talking, they're making it seem like it was all minors who were playing this game, who were speaking over adults and trying to dominate the space at the expense of the adults who were actually enjoying the game and stuff like that. I'm sure that there were genuinely some who were playing the game and they were being respectful about it, they were being quiet, they weren't taking up space that they shouldn't have been taking up. So I just think that it's unfair and unreasonable for some adults to have this mentality, oh, all of these kids, they were just awful little creatures. I even saw some people make comments about how all kids just ruin everything all the time. And that is just a really harsh and unfair statement to make. Now, I've seen some adults make comments like, oh, nobody below the age of 18 should be playing Love in Deep Space because this game is just too explicit and it's just too much for them to be playing this game if they're below the age of 18. And to that, I personally feel like that's a bit excessive because, first of all, I am totally in agreement that there are minors who are too young to be playing the game. Minors who are like 11, 12, 13, 15. I believe that this game should be 16 plus. And yeah, I just feel like not all minors are the same when it comes to age. There's the younger ones and then there's the older ones. And I feel like this game is perfectly fine for the older ones to be playing because Love and Deep Space, while it is a game that does have spicy content and it does have mature themes that need to be engaged with carefully and on an appropriate level in order for somebody to be playing the game in a healthy manner and stuff. But I do think that it's a bit much to go around acting as if Love and Deep Space is this extremely explicit game. All of these shocking things are happening. There's full on nudity in the game, and they're just doing everything under the sun and animating it from 12 different angles. No, that is not what is happening in the game. Like the game's spicy content is really not that explicit. I don't think it's so explicit that only adults should be engaging with it. I feel like it's perfectly fine for older teenagers to be playing this game. Now, when it comes to the mature themes, yes, it is true that the game does have mature themes. But even with that, I don't think that the themes are so mature that a 16-year-old can't engage with them in a healthy way. As a matter of fact, I feel like a lot of the themes that are present in the Love and Deep Space main story, like I feel like it would actually be really cool and great for 16-year-olds to think about these kinds of things. We live in a world where media literacy rates and it just feels like the overall education level and cognitive thought skills that people possess, they're on the decline. And I'm not the only person who has seen that. This just seems to be an overall mindset and viewpoint that a lot of people have, especially when it comes to children. We're seeing a decline in the reading levels of children going to school. A lot of children are now on the internet doom scrolling TikTok, and it's really taking a toll on their cognitive skills and stuff. So when I think about that, I think that it's really not such a bad thing for older teenagers to be engaging with the complexities of the Love and Deep Space storyline. The Love and Deep Space storyline, it brings up so many themes and questions, like when it comes to science and technology advancing for the supposed good of mankind, how far is too far? And is there a way to advance science and technology in a way that is truly ethical and good, not only for humans, but for the overall planet at large? And then questions like that, they just lead you to thinking about what would that look like? What would a world look like in which people are not stopped from thinking about science and technology and how to advance it? Intellect and things like that. There isn't a cap put on that, but at the same time, things like ethics and the greater good for humanity, for the planet at large, and not just humans, but all plants, all animals, and just the entire planet is also prioritized. I think that these are themes that are very present in the Love and Deep Space main storyline. When you think about what the scientists in the Love and Deep Space world are doing, the scientists at Ever, how they're creating wanderers, I believe, trying to seek after immortality on Philos and stuff like that, how they sacrificed to the planet and sacrificed a lot of ethics in order to advance science, all while claiming that this is for the good of humans, this is for the good of the world. Science needs to advance for the good of the future and stuff like that. And then when you also turn around and you look at the real world that we're living in, there's so much advancement happening in things like AI and stuff like that, and how it's taking away from the planet and the environment, and also just the effects that AI can have on the human brain and stuff like that. I think that there's so many dynamics that are from the game that are mirroring into our real world. And of course, art mimics real life. So I don't think that these kinds of themes should only be for 18 plus to think about. Matter of fact, I feel like that's really a harmful rhetoric to have, that only people who are older should be engaging with mature and difficult topics. Of course, there's a way for mature and older topics to be engaged with and interacted with by younger audiences that is appropriate for them in age. And there are certainly topics that are too mature for minors. I definitely agree with that. right? But I'm just not seeing the way that Love and Deep Space handles these mature topics to be so mature that someone who is 16 can't reasonably be playing the game. Honestly, I would much rather a 16-year-old engaging with the complexities of the Love and Deep Space world and themes and storylines than them spending hours on end doom scrolling on TikTok and other apps and stuff. And when we live in this world where third spaces are disappearing and it's just harder and harder for kids to access real life physical spaces where they can interact with other people their age, they are gonna turn to their phones and to the online world to supplement that, you know? Now, I'm gonna go back and discuss the whole spicy content part of Love and Deep Space once again because I do feel like there are so many adults who are taking this weirdly puritanical view of things. Like I've seen adults who are saying things like, "Oh, what is wrong with these under 18-year-old kids these days? These minors, why are they interested in adult content?" Or saying things like, "Oh, when I was that age, I was still playing with dolls. I was still doing XYZ, whatever it is that they were doing when they were that age." But it's like, while I definitely do agree that not all adult content should be made available for the consumption of minors. I definitely do agree with that. But at the same time, I disagree with the whole rhetoric that no minors should ever be interested or curious about adult content at all. I very much disagree with some of the shaming language that some older women are taking in regard to this whole thing. And I just want to say that, first of all, it is completely 100% natural for adolescents to be interested in things like this. Now, I'm going to be mostly talking about girls because Love and Deep Space is a game that is marketed for women. So I feel like a lot of the minors who are playing this game, they are girls, right? Usually, when it comes to girls, the ages in which one gets their first period is 10 to 15, with the average age being 12. And the reason why I'm mentioning periods is because when you get your period, it means that now you have started your whole menstrual cycle. And the menstrual cycle involves ovulation as well. And during the ovulation phase, estrogen peaks, and you can find that things like libido can also increase as well. Now, I'm sure that we all understand the biology behind that. If we are adults, we are supposed to be understanding of the biology behind that. And the reason why I'm mentioning all of this is because if there's an 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old who has periods, then that by default also means that they are also experiencing ovulation. And I just feel like adult women, more than anybody, should be understanding of teenage girls' bodies. I just feel like I believe that adult women, before anybody else, should be the ones who are the first to create safe spaces for teenage girls to understand themselves and their bodies and whatever changes that they are experiencing. Adult women should be the last people using shaming language for adolescents who are curious about sexual things. As we were their age once too, we understand what that is like. We have experienced that, and like sexual feelings and thoughts and curiosity and interest in that kind of thing, it is not 18 plus because the biology behind it is not 18 plus. Like I've just explained about the whole periods and ovulation thing and stuff like that, right? So the biology behind it itself is not 18 plus. So it should not be abnormal or unnatural or shameful or weird for a teenage girl to be interested in things like this. Now, does that mean that I believe that Love and Deep Space is for all adolescent girls, regardless of their age? No, I have already covered this. Like I said before, I feel like the game is for 16 plus. As for ages 10 to 15, I'm not saying that they can't play Love and Deep Space because I have expectations that they shouldn't have any interest in sexual content or things like that whatsoever. No, I do think that there are age appropriate conversations and stuff like that that they can be having with the responsible and involved adults in their life about the changes that they're experiencing, the thoughts that they're having, conversations that they should be having around things like sex and their sexuality and stuff like that. And those conversations, they should be happening and stuff like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that games like Love and Deep Space are age appropriate for them at that level. I do believe that Love and Deep Space is perfectly fine and appropriate for someone who's 16. That's okay. I've already covered that. And I also just want to point out that I have seen some adults make comments like, "Oh, the Love and Deep Space men are in their 20s," with the Raphael being the youngest, I believe. I think he's 24. And then Silas is the oldest at 28. And so the point that they're making is like, oh, it's just so weird to have 16-year-olds show romantic or sexual interest in grown men. And for that, I'm like, first of all, that's not unnatural. It's certainly unnatural and should never happen the other way around. We should not be having grown people show interest in children. But it's like when you're a teen, of course, you're going to be out here having crushes on actors and singers and stuff like that who are grown people. That is perfectly normal, that is natural. And second of all, the men in the Love and Deep Space world, they're fictional. Okay, there's nothing that they can do to a 16-year-old who is showing interest in them. They cannot harm a 16-year-old because they are not real. They cannot harm anyone because they are not real. And so, because of that, like, I think that it is far better for someone who's 16, 17, maybe possibly even 15, I don't know, to be engaging with Love and Deep Space than it is for them to be engaging with like real life pornographic material or having real life sexual experiences. I definitely think that is something that is above them, right? I believe that Love and Deep Space is something that is too old for 11-year-olds to 14, 15-year-olds, but I think it's okay for someone who's 15, 16, 17 to be playing Love and Deep Space. And I think that real world pornography and real world sexual experiences are way above someone who's 16 to 17, right? 15 to 17, right? And that is to say that I'm not out here shaming 15 to 17-year-olds who might be engaging in things like that. But it's more like concern. Like, I really just don't think that is for you. I think that has potential to be very harmful for you and stuff like that. But what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, a fictional video game that isn't explicit, that yes, it does contain spicy content, but it is not something that is so extremely explicit. I feel like that is an appropriate and healthy way for an older teenager to be exploring thoughts and ideas around relationships and sex, and it's certainly much better and much healthier than things like porn and real world sexual encounters. That is the point that I'm trying to make. I also think that it's important to point out that not all minors who are playing this game were solely there for the spicy content. The same way that not all adults who play this game are only there because of the spicy content. There's so much more that happens in Love and Deep Space than the spicy content. There's the battles, there's the main storyline, there's all the other side quests that happen as well. So yeah, it just seems strange to me that these adults are acting as if this is a game where only extreme explicit stuff happens. I'm sure that the minors will also experiencing the other aspects of the game, and in as much as they were interacting with the spicy content, there's also the other content that they were interacting with as well. I just feel like we, as 11th Deep Space community, we fought so hard to move away from that backlash and that label of Love and Deep Space being a gooner game or a porn game, right? So I just feel like we shouldn't now start perpetuating that same narrative of Love and Deep Space being this extremely explicit game when all along we have been saying that it hasn't been. Now, I also think that it's important for there to be a separation between the game itself, and by that I mean like the actual in-game experience, the actual in-game content, and the Love and Deep Space community. Like those are two different things. Now, I said earlier that yes, I do believe that it's perfectly okay for older teenagers to be playing this game. I do think that when it comes to engaging with the overall community, there does need to be more restraint and more caution that needs to be exercised by these teenagers. And by that, I mean that some adults, they like to make extremely explicit comments about their love interest, maybe talking about bedroom activities or certain body parts that their favorite love interest might have. Yeah, I've certainly seen a lot of comments like that. I have come across explicit fan art. I have even come across cosplayers who like to cosplay the Love and Deep Space characters. And while yes, there's certainly a lot of outfits that the Love and Deep Space love interests wear, which are totally fine, there are also outfits like the Catch 22 banner outfits in which it's pretty revealing the things that they're wearing. And I have come across cosplayers saying that when they're cosplaying these revealing outfits, it makes them uncomfortable when they go to events and there's like minors there who try to take photos with them, especially when they're like they want to do poses that involve skinship. And yeah, I totally understand that. I understand adults who are in the community wanting to put up boundaries between themselves and minors, right? Like I totally understand an adult cosplayer in a revealing outfit not wanting to take photos posing with minors while they're wearing that outfit. That is so understandable. I'm understanding of adults who post explicit fan art not wanting to interact with minors while posting this fan art. I understand adults who make really explicit comments, sometimes not wanting to interact with minors while doing so. Like all of that is perfectly understandable. I have seen some adults put in their bios, minors do not interact, stuff like that, making sure that they don't interact with people who are below the age of 18. And that is so understandable. Have your boundaries. I too, as an adult, like I also would like to put up my own boundaries. Like I would feel very uncomfortable if like I personally don't make explicit comments or explicit fan art, or I don't cosplay or anything like that. But if I were to come across a comment that was explicit, or I were to come across explicit fan art, or I especially like watching edits of the Love and Deep Space Men, and some of the lyrics that are used to make these edits are really explicit. Now, if I were to come across these edits or these fan arts or these comments, and I were to find out that it was actually a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old who was behind, I would feel very uncomfortable. I would be like, okay, like I've said before, I find it totally and completely natural for adolescents to express interest in these kinds of things, but it is one thing for an adolescent, an older teenager, to be playing this game because the game is a single player game. You can just play it for yourself and not be involved with anyone else when you play the game, whereas the community is a very different thing, right? In the community, it's community, you're involved with other people. So it's, yeah, I would definitely feel very uncomfortable if I was interacting with explicit fan art or an explicit edit that had explicit lyrics and I found out that it was being shared and distributed by a minor. That would not make me very comfortable at all. I would not like that. And yeah, I would just say to the minors who are in the community, definitely respect the boundaries that are put up by the adults in this space. If adults have made it clear that they do not want to interact with minors in that space, and by that I mean if an adult is making posts and comments on their own page, on their own platform, and they have expressed in their bio or in a comment or whatever that they do not want to have minors interact with whatever posts or comments or fan art or edits that they're making, then as a minor it is your responsibility to respect that boundary that adult has put up. And I also just think that as a minor you should not be sharing explicit fan art to a wider adult community, like at all. Now, it is a completely different case if there's like say an online group, and in that online group it's older teenagers, 15, 16, 17, whatever, and they're all just in that group together and they're making comments, maybe suggestive comments, sharing fan art, maybe suggestive fan art amongst themselves as peers about love and deep space. I feel like that's fine. And the reason why I feel like that's fine is because they're in a group setting amongst their peers, right? It's completely different when it's peer-to-peer communication and they're talking about explicit things. Matter of fact, I feel like that's fine. When I was a teenager, I would sometimes talk about these things with my friends, and I think that's a part of growing up. It's not something that you have to completely hide. And by that I mean that when you are a minor, you should be having conversations with reasonable, responsible, involved adults in your life, whether that be your parents, your guardians, and at times your teachers. If you're in class and you're doing biology class and they're teaching you these kinds of things, it is okay to have conversations like that with adults. And then it's okay to have conversations like that with your peers, as long as there's an understanding of everybody is interested in talking about this and you're being respectful of everybody who's there, because not everyone will be interested in talking about that. Not everyone will feel comfortable talking about that, but if it's a safe space and it's peer-to-peer communication, I just feel like it's not for me as an adult to go and be like, oh, what's wrong with you kids? Why are you guys talking about things like that? That's perfectly fine. But it is a completely different case when it's minors that are now initiating conversations like that to a broader adult community, right? Whether that be through making comments or making fan art or making edits that has a suggestive quality or nature to it. I just don't believe that it is for you to do that. And I also just think it's for your own safety and for your best interest that you not do that, because it can really open you up to a lot of unsafe situations. Because not every adult in the left and deep space community is going to be a safe adult. And even if an adult isn't a predator, even if they're a completely safe person, it's not unreasonable for that adult to not want to be involved in a conversation like that with you. They are not in your life. Like I said, adults should definitely be having conversations with children about these kinds of things, but it shouldn't be just any adult. It should be a responsible adult who is involved in that child's life. And the overall broader adult online community, they are not people who are involved with your life like that. So they should not be having those kinds of conversations with you. That is definitely not appropriate and it is not healthy. And I believe that there are a lot of adults who are expressing that concern and who are being very reasonable with that. I myself am also concerned with that. I feel like, yeah, that's something that should not be happening. There should most definitely be a separation between the game itself and the game experience and the overall community. So, yeah, as I'm talking about minors, older teenagers who are playing this game, being mindful within the community, I also just want to take some time to say that even if there are minors who are on the younger side who have been playing this game, I just want to say that, yeah, if you are someone who is in a space that you know is not for you, if you're doing things that you know you should not be doing, at least don't be so audacious as to try to be dominant over that space. You do not need to be disrespectful and rude and dominating in that space that is just not for you. Like, personally, as I have said multiple times before throughout this video, that I do not think that ages 11 to 14, maybe even 15, should be playing this game, right? But if you are in that age range and you have been playing this game, like, honestly, I know that kids, they get into things that they shouldn't be getting into, but yeah, just have the intelligence to not be that kid, that minor who is now being all loud and rude within that space. Just keep it quiet, although preferably stay out. Honestly, because the game is not for you if you're really that young. It's really not for you, and that is for, I'm saying that with the best intentions in mind towards you. And yeah, all of that brings me to adults. Like, when it comes to minors playing this game, the younger minors who should not have been playing this game in the first place, I have just been seeing so many adults who were blaming the minors themselves as if all of the fault is theirs. And while yes, I do believe that if you are a minor who was in a space that you shouldn't have been in, doing things that you shouldn't have been doing, like for sure, you should take some responsibility for that. You should face some consequences for that. But it's like the majority of the blame is on the parents, if you ask me. It is on the adults who, like, what was happening when your 13-year-old or whatever was stealing your credit card, your debit card, and spending all this money making in game purchases on the game or buying an account to play the game? And where were you? Why weren't you regulating or guiding your child on what is acceptable for them to be playing and involved in on their devices? So I just feel like, yeah, the majority of the blame should be on the adults, and it is unfair and unreasonable for adults who are making statements like judging and blaming the kids. Because I have seen statements like that. Like I saw literally one person on Threads make a ghost post where they were like, yeah, I understand that the parents are at fault, but at this point, I am blaming the underage bitches who were playing the game because why were they being brats? Like I legitimately saw someone make a post like that and I was shocked. And the thing is, it was a ghost post, and I saw that very same woman make another post where she was like, yeah, I just want to be logical about this. I am concerned, stuff like that. And in that other post, which wasn't a ghost post, she did sound very logical. She sounded very rational. And I was just shocked because I'm like, how can you be in one post, your ghost post? So you know that what you're doing is wrong because you made a ghost post. So you had intentions for it to disappear after a while, right? To not stay on your permanent account forever, right? Yeah, it was just wild and hypocritical to see that, to see someone on the one hand being like, yeah, they are underage bitches, and then in another one be like, I'm just concerned for the minors who are playing this game, and that is why I am saying this. I was just like, wow, the hypocrisy. It is so real. And yeah, on that topic about how some adults were way out of line with the things that they were saying, I just want to say that there is never, ever any situation whatsoever where it is appropriate for adults to say some of the things that they were saying. Outside of that one woman who was calling them underage bitches, there was another person who was calling them little pieces of shit, another person who was threatening physical violence, another person calling for them to be spanked, another person who was saying that, oh, as adults, we do not shame these children enough. And I'm like, what are these people on? Like, you cannot tell me that these are actual adults. That is wild. That is not okay. That is completely unacceptable. Like, no, the kids do not need to be spanked. There's absolutely no reason why you, as an adult, need to be calling for and advocating for this literal child abuse over a fictional game. And yeah, I just saw a lot of adults have this stunning lack of empathy. And the thing is, like, there was a part of me when I was seeing these comments that these adults were making that was like, okay, maybe it's some adults who have this kind of mindset, who are saying these kinds of things, making these kinds of comments. But I don't know if it was my algorithm, right? I'm not on everyone's phone, I'm not on everyone's algorithm. I don't know, maybe it was my algorithm that was the problem, but the majority of the adults that I was seeing making comments, they were just doing so in harmful ways, being harsh on the children, putting blame where it shouldn't have been, perpetuating unhelpful and harmful narratives about the minors who were playing these games. And it was the minority of adults that I saw who were making rational, logical, actually concerned, kind, and caring comments about the minors who are playing this game. So like I said before, maybe it's just a problem with my algorithm that was showing me that. But yeah, I was just shocked at the sheer amount of adults, some of whom I followed, right? And I followed so many of them because, yeah, I was just shocked by a lot of the comments that people were making. The way that some of these adults were so quick to turn around and start bullying an age group that they perceived to be weaker than them, and they are. Minors are weaker than adults. Yeah, it was just shocking seeing how many adults were so ready to start bullying children and to pull out all this harsh language about children who are playing this game. And I saw some adults who tried to cover up their harsh bullying statements with other statements that sounded logical, like, oh, the reason I'm concerned is because this game, you need to have critical knowledge skills and critical thinking skills in order to actually engage with it, with the themes and stuff like that. And I was like, first of all, the reaction that you were giving to this whole situation with minors playing the game, it is showing that you yourself are lacking critical thinking skills, right? Because like the evidence that I saw to support the whole narrative of it was minors who ruined this game, it was mostly like a screenshot or two, right, of a couple of minors being like, oh, I'm 11 and I play this game, or I'm this age and I play this game, right? That is not enough evidence to support the narrative that it was mostly minors who caused Valko to be removed. So, with the adults who are perpetuating that narrative, spreading it around, it's clear that they're showing a lot of irony and hypocrisy by saying that they believe minors shouldn't be playing the game because they lack critical thinking skills when they themselves were not critically engaging with the amount of evidence that was there to support their claims, right? I hope I'm making sense by what I said. Okay, so yeah, before I end this video, it's gone on long enough, honestly, and I feel like I've said everything that I needed to say. Hopefully, my points came across right. Yeah, I really hope I haven't been coming across as being holier than thou or judge or anything. That is not what I'm trying to do. But yeah, lastly, I just wanted to talk about these witch hunts that I've been noticing happening in the community. And by that, it just seems like people really are so determined to find the one true culprit behind why Valgo got removed. And I have just been seeing the same kind of attitude recycled with different kinds of arguments. And by that I mean the very first witch hunt that happened was the one where they were saying that, oh, it was all Chinese players. They hated Valko. They were all toxic. They are all the reason why Valko was removed. When that was completely false, because no, it was not all the Chinese players. Not all of them are toxic. And number two, there were plenty of global players who were being toxic and who were against Valko. Literally, all you need to do is go to that post on Twitter where Levin Deep Space made the announcement where they said that, oh, we're not going to be canceling Valko because he's part of our long term plans for this game and stuff like that. And there were many, many global players who were being toxic in that comment section. So, no, it most definitely was not only Chinese players. I believe that's something that's already been established. And then after that, I saw the whole argument of it was silent whispers. They were the ones who were behind this. Yeah, they were afraid of Love and Deep Space's large influence in the otome gaming industry, and now that they're preparing to launch their game, they were behind everything that happened with the Valco, stuff like that, blah 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 blah. And that was a whole other witch hunt all on its own. People were trying to find evidence and stuff like that where it wasn't there. Yeah. And now it's unfortunate that this third witch hunt has been going after minors. So I would just urge you all, please don't participate in these witch hunts. It's just divisive. It takes away from the main priority of this movement. Yeah, it's just something that's not very necessary that we need to be doing. I feel like this movement, this boycott, it's going to go on for a bit longer. I don't know when it will end. And I just feel as time goes on and info continues to be silent, there's going to be more big moments where people become highly reactive. And unfortunately, while I hope there isn't going to be, I do believe that there's going to be more witch hunts as people try to dig up who else to blame for everything that has happened. And yeah, it's just really unfortunate, but I just want to put out there that I hope that people can realize how harmful and divisive this is and how much we just really don't need it in this movement, right? Let's focus on what matters the most, and let's focus on being positive and being kind and respectful to each other. So yeah, I really hope that I was making sense in this video. I hope that my points came across well and stuff like that. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Seriously. That is important.